All right, outside a little chilly now. A little earlier I was working up and back here, and about 2 years ago, maybe three, I took out all my stumps except for one stump. So my job that I'm now doing, since I've got some time, is to try to make a good neighbor and build a picket fence because we've got a dog. That one stump happens to be the one stump that I left, which is right on the property line, mostly on my side, and right in the way of where my posts are going to go. So I've got to do that, get that out of there. So today I thought, well, I started leveling the ground for where the posts are going to go, and then I got to deal with this stump. So I go and get the chainsaw out and cut in, and the first thing I noticed, though, is that it was already starting to grow back. So I think it's about 2 years now. I was already starting to get shoots off of it. Man, you'd think you cut off a tree, and then there's also shoots coming out of the roots and everything. So, man, what a resilient tree. Anyway, I was like, well, I'm going to take care of it anyway. So, took care of it, except I started to take care of it. It would be the more appropriate phrase. Couldn't quite get at it at a good angle because it's kind of on an incline going up my back here, and so I made a cut in. I thought it was far enough, and then I was like, well, I can't. I'm just gonna wedge it off here. So I went and got my splitting wedges and chopping down into it, hoping to get down to there, and my angles apparently didn't meet. And I buried 2 wedges in that thing, and they were stuck. Good. So I was like, well, so now what? Well, we kept on trying to cut into it more, and wouldn't you know it, this is the last stump that I need out in my yard, at least that I can think of, because I ain't cutting down any of these big ones. So I said, well, we'll take care of it, and my chainsaw broke. Now it's just an electric piece of junk. But this is the last stump, and there's no way I'm going to go pay $200 to get another chainsaw to finish this up. So, what am I going to do now? Well, I do have in my garage a old-fashioned saw, hand saw, the old tree saws, good rusty old saw. So I'll get out there. About 5 minutes into this, I remember a couple of things. The first thing that I remembered was how much I really despise hand saws and, in fact, yard work in general. That was the first thing I remembered. The second thing I remembered was that I have a Sawzall, and I even have blades. I'm like, I think I still have some of those old heavy wood brush blades in it. So I got up there to finish the job. I did finish a part of it. I got enough off of my tree that I can at least build my fence past it, and now it's kind of sitting off to the back, and I'll take care of it somehow, some way later. Maybe I'll borrow somebody's chainsaw. But a couple of things came to my mind as I was doing this, other than the fact that I hate yard work. It was interesting that my angle for how far I could get when that chainsaw broke was like right here, and where I was splitting was right here, and it was just holding on by an inch. My goodness, that 1 inch was amazingly strong for a 2-year-old chopped down tree. You would think it would be a little bit harder, but that thing was hanging on for dear life. I wasn't even going to move that. But another thought I had was, if it wasn't for Adam, maybe some of this stuff would be easier. That's a thought I always have, but probably trees would be just as strong with or without Adam having sinned. So that I can't really blame that one. Some things you can blame on Adam. Some yard work, is probably a little bit more difficult because of Adam, but probably trees are just trees. But what I did arrive at was this thought. The inventions of man are inadequate. I mean, they don't make it easy. there's varying levels of difficulty, from handsaw to electric chainsaw. Maybe if I had a really nice gas chainsaw, it would have been super easy and no problem. With me, probably not, just a novice. But whatever the case, Sawzall, it's still difficult work. And I was out here for 2.5, 3 hours trying to get that thing down, and I only got a section of it off. The things that God makes are so powerful and so strong, and the things that man comes up with to try to deal with the things that God has made are woefully inadequate and difficult. Even the good inventions are still labor intensive. And we're looking at a situation right now where I know there's a lot of well-meaning people, but understand that even in well-meaning things, there are forces at work that will try to use whatever they can use. And I'm not even talking about people, but I'm talking about an opposition to God that will resort to whatever it can resort to and use whatever situation it can exploit to try to be opposite to God. And sometimes that does include people. There are people that hate God, and they are quite willing to be used to try to defeat whatever purpose of God that they can. And those forces are at work now. They seek an opportunity to do some damage wherever they can. And they don't understand that even if we hang on by a little thread, then we spring back to life. And it is going to be very difficult for those forces. They've done it time and time again. They've tried to defeat things, and they do inflict damage. They can be pretty effective. They're like my Sawzall or what have you. They can be pretty effective, but they can't defeat God. They're going to lose at some point. In the long run, they're going to be like me up on my tree, beating themselves. My arm from that Sawzall on that tree is still vibrating, and that's a couple hours ago. Not a wise thing to do, by the way. We come up with so many plans that we think are just going to be so great in defeating the things that God makes, and that is, I think, what will happen. God will let people beat themselves against the things that He makes and against primarily His church. That's what people want to defeat, who are aligned with those forces and heavenly places, as Paul wrote. And whether they are willing to be used or whether they're being used against their knowledge, they don't know. God will defeat it, and He'll make sure that it's evident that it was Him who did the defeating, and He will leave that to no doubt. So my encouragement to you is to stick through this, not to resort to man's devices, but to let God do His devices, to be a tool of life in God, and to let Him win this the way He likes to win things, and let other people be the ones to beat themselves silly fighting God. All right, that's all for today, and we'll hope for a warmer day tomorrow. All right, bye.